Today's conversation is a very special one for me. I'm joined by Karen Heras Kelly, and our connection goes back to 2018, actually at this time of year, when I was due to travel with Karen and her co-host Claire Harpin on a retreat to the Himalayas. It was a time many of us will remember well. The beast from the east had swept across the UK, and what was meant to be a sacred, life-giving journey took a very different turn. During that journey, Karen went through a profound and devastating experience. While travelling, her engagement ring, something deeply precious to her, was stolen. And shortly after arriving in Delhi, she began to miscarry. Karen had waited a long time to become pregnant, and the shock, loss, and emotional upheaval were immense. What unfolded next would change her life forever. Karen later discovered she'd been carrying twins. One baby was lost, and one survived. Out of a deep grief came new life, and with it, a transformation that reshaped her understanding of resilience, womanhood, and what it truly means to be empowered. Karen was already a highly successful businesswoman before becoming a mother, but today her work is rooted in something far deeper, helping women reconnect with themselves, their wisdom, and their power through life's most challenging transitions. This conversation is about loss and love, about identity and becoming, and about what we learn when life asks everything of us. I'm so grateful to welcome Karen into this space today. Oh, Karen, when I think back to that time, what stays with me is not just what happened, but how profoundly it seemed to change the way you moved through the world afterwards. I'd really love to begin by asking, when you look back now, what did that experience teach you about yourself, and how did it quietly begin to reshape the work you now do with women?
Ooh, it's still quite hard to talk about because it is so deeply evocative for me. Like, I went through something that was like there was no going back. And, I always think that loss of a child is something that you never get over, regardless of the age. And for me, that is true, actually. That is true. Like, there is a deep sadness that I still feel, as you can hear by my voice, that cannot be fixed. I don't want it to be fixed. I want to honor the experience. And it was very strange for me because for a long time, I thought about the fact that there were two babies. So when I saw Catalina, I almost saw the other, which I believe was a boy. And I had to go on my own journey with that, like saying goodbye. And it took time, actually. It didn't happen immediately because immediately when I was in India, I was focused on keeping the baby that I knew was still alive. So it was very strange. It was like living two parallel lives because I was fighting for her and had so much love for her and so much hope. And at the same time, I was grieving for the loss. And it showed me that two things can be true at the same time. That we can feel grief and sadness, and we can also feel deep love. And I don't think I think they are hand in hand. They are two sides of the same coin. And sometimes we don't want to feel the grief or the sadness, but by not feeling it, we can't also feel love. And it's this emotional journey that we go on as human beings, as women, as mothers, that's really, really vital for us. Because if we cut off the sadness and the grief, we become very flatline. And actually, the sadness is informing me that I lost something that was deeply precious. I will never hold that baby. And I imagine what that was like, but I feel the energy of that baby around me still. So I feel he's still here, and it's something that I think about, it comes back. I don't talk about it so often, but I had to go and do my own personal work, and sort of waiting to become a mum. I was 43 when I had Catalina. So it was much later on, and I'd longed for her all my life, and that sounds like a big thing to say, but it was true for me. Like from being um quite young, I was like, I want to be a mother. I just knew it in my bones. And yet it took all that time, and then this sort of experience happened. But what was also true for me was that the time in India, I received the most amazing medical care. So when you know, I had the miscarriage, there was a baby remaining. I had to stay in hospital for a week. I wasn't allowed to put my feet on the floor, get up and go to the toilet. So there was all of these sort of like parameters around, my health, I suppose. I knew that I was fighting for both of us. It felt really, really strong to me that we both needed each other. She needed me to be strong and stay sort of like firm in my beliefs that we could get through it because she was part of me. So I had this really strong instinctual thing of the vulnerability and the vulnerable place that we were in, but I had to stay strong and be. So I was like meditating, I couldn't get out of bed, but I was lying in bed, meditating and, visualizing things. And as I went into the hospital room that I was in, there was all this blossom on the wall. And the name that I'd given my baby was Blossom. Before she was, was part of my body and her soul came into my body. Before that moment, the code name was codename Blossom. And then when I got wheeled into this, room, there was all this blossom on the, like as part of the decoration. And it was like, I just was like, wow, like it hit my heart so hard. It's like, if there's not a symbol here or a sign that this is going to be okay, I don't know what is, because that couldn't have been by chance. And so that gave me great hope as well. And I was on my own, in the hospital until my now husband arrived to help. But it was interesting because I went into this place inside myself that was so solid, so powerful, yet gentle, yet soft and vulnerable. And I was like, I know what I need to do. I have all these tools and these skills that I've, been working with all my life, really, meditation, breath work, visualizations, hopefulness, optimism. I was like, I know all of this. So now is the time to use it. So it was already in my sort of back pocket. And I fell back on that really, really firmly. And it felt like the right thing to do. And at the same time, I had to manage my emotions to a point. And I went through that the whole of the pregnancy where I was like, can't go into the grief, can't go in deep, deep in until she's born. But it was in my system. And then as soon as as soon as Catalina was born, then I went into like the deep grief and the deep work and started to unpack that. And it took a long time, but that was okay.
At what point did you know then that you were having twins?
It was when we had one of the scans. The first scan I had, it didn't show, but on the second scan, they said there's a sac here and one is empty. And I was like, wow, because we didn't know that it was twins. It's quite common later in life. So that was a surprise, obviously. And she was 13, Catalina was 13 weeks old then in the womb. So, it was really very, very early on in the pregnancy. Yeah, and it's something that I sit with because I'm going to have that conversation with her later on in life. I have told her as a little child, I told her that she was a twin. We had the conversation. She doesn't remember it because she was always looking for, like, even as a baby, she'd be sort of quite small. She'd be sort of reaching out with her hands. And yeah, it's like part of her knows that she was a twin. You can see it in her. Like me and my husband talk about this quite a lot. Like she's always sort of almost like looking around for somebody else. So there's some awareness there. So this is a conversation that we'll be having again later, as she grows up, because she didn't come in as one, she came in as two. And yeah, it's just part of her story. She deserves to know, I think, part of her story. I think for me, like, I realized what a strong leader I am through this experience, because as I was in the hospital, I knew which nurses I wanted to come and look after me, because I couldn't, as I said, get out of bed. I'd had one nurse that was quite aggressive in how she was handling me, and she was saying things like, you can get up now and go to the toilet. And I was like, no, I've been told by the doctors I'm not allowed to, stand up, because obviously the standing up area could have put too much pressure. And because they kept saying, you might lose her, didn't say her, they said, you might lose your baby, you might lose your baby. So I had this fear around the situation that if I did something that wasn't right, that, I could lose her, which I was being told that. So not moving out of the bed was one thing that I could do and take charge of. So I would say, I'm not doing that. And then I would speak to superior and say, I don't want that nurse to come and take care of me. There is another nurse who's really lovely. Can she come and take care of me instead? So I just started to get very, very specific about my own needs and about what felt right. And I used my inner compass, my, inner knowing, my intuition to be like, I don't need that. And I would say things like, too many people are coming in my room. The door is being knocked on all the way through the night to ask me if I'm okay. Can you give me some peace? So became very like directive with my needs, which was, again, I think when we go through hard times, it can really reroute us to be like, hold on a minute, this is serious, this is life or death. What are my needs? And we start to express them. So it gave me a true indication of just how capable, how resilient, and how strong I am. Not a nice scenario, but at the same time, this is when we step up, I think.
So do you think it was sort of a real combination of a mother's instinct coming to the fore along with your intuition? Because you have always done a lot of work on yourself anyway, for as long as I've known you. And clearly, that in a scenario like this, you're dealing with, well, to some degree, you're dealing with a loss. You're dealing with fear around trying to keep your other baby safe. You are dealing with becoming a mother, and your body has not been behaving in an entirely safe, as a safe container. Fear could have paralyzed you emotionally. But do you think it was really intuition or just mother instinct, like a lioness?
Yeah, no, definitely. And it was the same all the way through the pregnancy. And I was the same, through the afterbirth areas. I was just like so in my power and so almost like bear-like. You know what I mean? I was like a mother bear. And it was very powerful. But I was also gentle and soft. I do believe, like, we see so many bad misuses of power in the world that we go, oh, power, it's almost like got a bad ring to it. But actually, as women, as mothers, we know how to be powerful, but it doesn't look like a toxic version of power. It's much more nurturing and truth-telling and supportive, and really going for something that's higher. And when we're looking at life, are we going to survive? Are we not going to survive? It calls something from us that I don't think you can fake that. I think it comes through. I think if you thought about it too much, maybe you would take a different approach. But for me, like, I stopped thinking and I started being, but connecting that to the doing. Like the work that I do with women is very much that. But this is like, there's no time to waste. And it was like when my engagement ring got stolen, I knew it was. I knew it was going to happen. Like my intuition, my instincts are so fantastic, and I think my life's journey has taught me, through all the work that I've done, but also through the real experiences, that I can trust my instincts and I can trust my body, and it's going to tell me information, and I do not need to doubt that. And only the times when I've doubted it, I think I've got myself into situations, but I don't do that anymore. And I'm really clear with, oh, I've got a signal, okay, and I go straight in, and there's no messing anymore. And that's really powerful. But again, it's not aggression. It's like a deep listening and a deep sense of awareness. And with that, we can start to create, the next steps or inspiring action. Even it might be something that we're really inspired to do. I'm talking here about, like some of the devastating things that happen to us. But there is a voice inside our body that lives inside our gut often called the second brain. It has more information in the gut than it does in the brain. That is giving us it's giving us urges, and we've all been trained to not listen to that and to become logical. I like a bit of logic. I'm not, but we also need to listen to the feelings from within. And with my ring, I just when the security guard said to me, "Take your ring off," and I was like, "I'm not taking my ring off." And my bags had gone through, so they gave me like the big trays that they give you in an airport for one small ring, and I was like, not taking it off. And then they all started to get quiet, and I knew I was pregnant, so I was a bit like, actually, I need to take the ring off because I was in Abu Dhabi. I was like, I don't really want to get into something here. And when I took it off, it was like, I will never see that ring again. And it didn't come out of the scanner, or either they took the ring, oh, or somebody traveling took the ring, but it was never ever coming back to me. And I knew that. And then I had to face that and deal with that and be like, right, okay. So we got on another plane. And on that plane, I thought, I need to get a handle of my emotions because if I don't, I'm going to miscarry. And by the time, so I did the work on the plane. It was a short flight. I did the work. And when we touched down, I was already back in my body, back ready. But the shock had been so great. And when we got off, I said, I'm going to go to the toilet. I went to the toilet and I was bleeding. And so there was this information that was coming through. Now, there's many ways I can look at it, but knowing the service that I actually got, all the extra work that the maternity teams did in India that they don't do in the UK. Actually, yes, I lost a child, but my daughter was safeguarded. And if I look at it from a different place, because I've done a lot of like looking and searching and seeking, when I got back, they said, well, we wouldn't have done any of that stuff for you. You would have just had to go through it. Like I had all these different hormone injections and different things that they do, which was amazing. And I wouldn't have been admitted into hospital and had, bed rest or any of that. So if I'm looking at it from that side, I can say, well, perhaps it saved her. I don't know the answers, but certainly there was something that needed to happen, in Delhi. That was a reroute somehow. And I accept that was part of my journey and part of my life.
And that's a perception, isn't it, as well? I would have, I know your story, so you changed my mind, but I would have perceived falling ill in Delhi as being something to strictly avoid. But your experience tells a completely different story. And that in its own way is fascinating. I find that, really interesting. And it's given you a view which is, yeah, which just goes to show how ignorant I was. And I was very ignorant about India before I went. And I learnt so much. I think India is one of the countries where you probably would learn the most about yourself amongst life's experiences. I certainly did.
I think it's a weird thing because, I was there to lead I went with a mission to lead a retreat. We'd spent 2 years working on this retreat. I had people say to me, what were you thinking going to India pregnant? Are you crazy? Which, was their opinion. And I saw it as their opinion. And I had to do my own due diligent work on that, being their opinion. I went and I wanted to be part of that, and there was all these amazing women that were going there to work with me and to do deep work. And we built this whole program and everything. And then I got stopped from going there and the retreat went on without me.
Yeah, that was tricky in itself.
Yeah, but the impact of that, like we go on these retreats, we go on these journeys, we do this organized work on ourselves because we need to get the lessons, we need to get the insights, we need to get the true meanings We go there for something. And then sometimes it takes a whole different journey. It takes you to a different place, but that's the work, isn't it? And that was my work. Like I had to face being in that hospital, with it was life-changing, peak moment in my life, never going to forget it. Changed me, in an instant, and then went on to change me and change me and change me. And that's the work. And so I think sometimes people go along and they're like, oh, I want to have all these nice experiences and I want to feel free. But it's like, that's going to require a lot of work from you. You are going to have to get deep down and dirty to get that energy, because we've all been conditioned. We've all had life experiences. We all carry, pain and shame and guilt and all the things that we don't like to take out of the box that we put it in. But actually, if we are going to be truly present, truly authentic, live our best lives, we have to do that work. I believe we have to do that work. And that makes us resilient. It shows us how capable we are. And it helps us to find the inner peace that I think we're often chasing, but it doesn't always come easy. That's what I'm trying to say.
It was a learning experience for everybody on that retreat as well, because there were certainly a number of people who were most definitely had booked on it because they wanted to have your teachings and your offerings. And it was an adjustment all around. But I think we actually probably pulled together as a group on the back of what happened to you much more powerfully than it would have happened otherwise. And it did turn into something very beautiful. It did. And it did create some very binding conversations. And from the people that I know whose lives went on afterwards, they went on differently. Changes were made in their lives as a result of it. So I think there's a ripple effect. Sometimes the universal plan isn't that you get exactly what you want, but it's there to teach you how to adapt to what you have been gifted. And it's all a gift in its own way.
I think we obviously want to plan and control, and but it's perfectly okay, and that's very, very human. There's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes it works out really well, and you go, "Wow, I had this dream, this vision, or this dream, and then I created a plan, and I executed it, and it took me here, and look how brilliant that is." And that's like, that's when everything's working to your plan. And then there's the other extreme version of that. That's like, oh my gosh, I had these dreams and then I got taken over in this direction. And it was totally not what I expected, but I still, if we can face into it and face into the challenge, we often do get taken somewhere that is actually more us, more right for us in a weird way. And I think life is this great mystery. And I think if it wasn't a mystery, I think it would be really boring. And it's, being willing to sort of face into our lives, no matter what comes up, I think is what makes us strong. And for me, like, I've had lots of great experiences in my life. I've, had many adventures. I've lived fully in every single guise, but I've also had a lot of trauma, and I've not turned away from any of it. And I think this is the secret of life, just to be like, oh, okay, this is really, really hard. And we have to go into the cave to do the work to unpack it. And then things start to lighten up, and we find the deep meanings, I think, and it strengthens us, and we can then be that for others. I don't think you can be there for others if you are not willing to do your own inner work.
I get the theory of that, but I think for most of us, we avoid what we have discomfort with. And I think that that's where some of your work is very powerful, because you have a gentle way of metaphorically holding people's hands so they can meet the obstacles that they're facing. I know this personally, and I know how invaluable your coaching was for me. How did your coaching, your offerings changed from before being a mother? Because, I mean, you're a very high-powered woman. You still are. It's just, I'm not trying to say it, but, that was a very different route you were on.
How has it differed? It's a really good question. I almost look at women's lives now, and I see like the ups, the downs, the twists. You know, I also look at my own life in the same way. Each decade has been about something very different for me and has required something different. I was became a mother later in life, so 40 my forces were very much around family, um, safety with family in a way, like creating a safe cocoon and going into that cocoon, doing deep healing work, doing work that fills my heart with joy. And some of it's quite hard, like some of the work I do is quite hard because it's facing the breaking points. It's like going into like the spaces of maybe despair is a big word, but like when people are at that low, really low point and really like creating a space of safety for them to sort of go into this cocoon. Because I definitely went into a cocoon and that cocoon was my safety. And I, was just so committed to my own healing journey. I just was like, I will heal. I will heal. I will do this work and I will heal and I will come through it. This is not going to define me, although I will never forget it. And I did the work and I came out of the cocoon, but it took quite a long time. But I was just really, really gentle with myself and really like I gave myself permission. And at the same time, I was doing work with others. So I was also because there's something for me about when I do the deep work, it gives me hope. And then when I see other women doing the deep work, it gives me hope. And so there is this sort of exchange that happens. And I find that when I work with women, they are so truthful. And when they see like their blocks or the barriers or like the pain points, they want to do something about it, and they face in. They don't turn away, they face in. And I think the reason they face in is because they know they're safe to do the work. So for me, safety has been the most important foundation. I learned it later in life that if I don't feel safe, if the people, if there's any kind of leak of safety, then I'm not my full self. And so I have to sort of work out how to get safe again. So that has been like a big piece that I learned. I learned it there because if I wasn't safe, then my baby wasn't safe. And there was a lot in my life building up to that point where I'm a very trusting person. So I would always trust people and think, well, because I can't think of being hateful towards others or taking something from others that is just not part of my nature. I'm a nurturing, kind, loving person, and I've always been like that from being a little girl. And so it's not part of my makeup to sort of think negatively or like to want to sort of take what someone has. I'm like, no, go get your own thing. Like that's my work to do. So I don't have that in me, and so I had to learn, on my journey that I can be loving and I can also have boundaries. And those boundaries are very often around safety. And if I don't feel right, I have to listen to that and take an action. And so that's been the journey, because before that I was too trusting. And so therefore I would find myself in situations, that weren't safe. And therefore then there would be an action with that. And then that would really hurt me, and those, it's, I'm talking about things like assault and that kind of, we're living in a world where is really, really a huge concern for women, in their safety, in everyday life. We have I'm going to call it like an epidemic, but a pandemic in the field of sexual safety for women and girls and probably boys as well. Um, and we have to learn to sort of honor our own bodies and honor the feelings in our own bodies and um, demand like greater safety in a way. So this is another part of my journey alongside the motherhood journey. It's been around all different levels of safety for me as a woman. And now I look at my daughter and I go, oh my God, it's even more important now because she's in this world. Like I am, I'm going to be 50 in May. So I've lived a big chunk of my journey. I've got a lot of brilliant experiences from that, but I've got some really bad ones too. And my commitment is that I'm not going to hide away. I'm not going to be silent. I am not going to sweep things under the rug. I'm going to have very truthful and honest conversations. I'm going to tell it as it is. But I'm also going to provide support systems, safe spaces, ideas on how how our systems can evolve so that we are part of something that is much more nurturing and supportive for women, girls, boys, and for men that want to be part of that journey with us.
Mm. Do you think people pleasing is somewhere in that mix? Do you think that's part of?
Definitely. I mean, I was definitely a good girl. Like, I was quite quiet as a child. I am still quite quietly spoken, and would always hold back and let others sort of step in front of me. That's just a little bit of my nature, really. And I don't want to dismiss that because that can be really lovely. But what I've had to learn, moving through is that actually I have needs. The things are good. There's, I'm like, what's going on here right now? Why do I feel so uncomfortable? What's going on? What's that feeling? Okay, what's it telling me? Okay, what do I need? What's the unmet need that I'm ignoring? So I've learned to face into my own needs, which has made me boundaried and stronger. But I didn't know how to do that because I was always like, how are you? Oh, what do you need? Oh, yeah, well, you want to take that off me? Okay, here you go. Take my coat. Um, and it's definitely was like about being pleasing, um, smiley, happy, all of these conditionings that I think get placed on girls and women. Boys have their own and men have their own form of conditioning, but it's definitely something in the female psyche that's around be pleasant, be the good girl, really. And that includes people pleasing. Because if someone else is happy, then I can go, oh, I'm really happy that you're happy. And I genuinely do feel it, but not if it's at my expense.
Yeah. Yeah, and in many ways, that's what your Say It Sister is all about, your podcast, because you do tackle taboos and myths and narratives that keep women small. What inspired you to start that?
It was interesting because both myself and Lucy, who I do the podcast with, we'd both experienced sexual assault. And I was further along the line with mine. And then she contacted me, and I ended up, doing work with her to support her through hers. And so, as part of these conversations and the work that we were doing, well, we just had the most incredible conversations. Number one, she's also a fellow coach. And once we'd done the work, we continued to speak and talk about what was going on and how it was impacting women, including us, obviously formed around our own journeys as well. And we were friends anyway because we both studied coaching together in 2012. So we had this like long, respectful, mutual relationship together. And we were like, we need to start broadcasting this because we're experiencing things, we're seeing things that are deeply concerning. We also have a lot of experience, and we've also come through a lot. So we've got the other side of the coin where we can say, this is awful. We know exactly what you're going through, and this is really not acceptable. And there is a way through. Please don't give up. Please don't, settle for less than you deserve, whatever that looks like. So we have that side of it. And so we just decided to start broadcasting our conversations, really. And it's been amazing. I think we had something like 100 downloads last week, and we're listened to in, I don't know, 40 countries around the world. I don't know how many continents. And there are people all over the world listening to our conversations. And I mean, whether it's one or whether it's huge, it doesn't really matter to me. It's just if we can connect with one person and share something that helps them in their day, then that's worth doing.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's powerful wherever it is in the world because the stories are reasonably similar. Yeah, yeah. Um, how do your courses on offerings help women in real life?
I think it's that daily practical, like feeling empowered is a feeling. And there's a lot that goes into that word empowerment. It's been overused, I would say. Everybody's saying they empower women, but so for me, it's like that real deep empowerment, like of really being able to go on a journey and, you believing in that person, number one, but really sort of taking them into what they really want. So and it includes safety, it includes trust, it includes using our voices, it includes, standing up for ourselves. So there's so many different elements of that. But I think the big thing is about helping women to feel equipped because the world has changed so much and we don't know what it will look like in 10 years. And so we have to be able to face into the challenges. I think everything I've done to this point has prepared me for that, to be able to go, what is this really about for me personally? And what is the message I'm being delivered? Because if we don't face things, we will get a bigger lesson.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like the universe is trying to help us along somehow. And it's about really like our growth, you know, in this life. I'm quite old school in that view, but I do believe that because that's definitely what's spoken to me all my life. It all makes sense when I look at it and when I do the work and I sort of like link things together and I go, it's the same message, it's the same message I'm being given. So am I going to face in and start listening or am I going to, like try to shut it down? I choose to open it up now these days.
Yeah. So that are you getting a feeling that more women are sort of coming on board with what you're saying? You're getting feedback along those lines. Yeah. So what do you see emerging in women that gives you hope?
I think women are using their voices in ways that they have never used before. And when I look at menopause, perimenopause, like the life stage work that I do, women they're calling it out, and that is new. It's menopause, it's been around forever, but that is new. And that makes me excited because I think, we were having the same thing with endometriosis right now. And, you know, periods, women are calling it out and they are educating and they are sort of sharing their stories in ways that make sort of people stand up. It could be employers or it could be another family member and saying, wow, I didn't know that that's what you've been going through, because we keep it quiet and we tend to ignore our body's signals because we're so focused on the outputs and the do. We're like, no, I've got all this stuff to do and I haven't got time to listen to the fact that I'm in actually deep pain um, inside, my ovary or wherever it might. I mean, I actually have endometriosis, so that's another thing. But it is crippling sometimes. I'm walking around with a hot water bottle attached, stuffed down my trousers, and that really, really helps me. So it's like I can do that because I work from home. So it's like this coming of like this. I think a wider awareness of all the things that are wrong, and through sharing our stories and our experiences, there is this desire, I think, to want to create change. And there's certainly a lot of changes coming through in the UK around, employment law to help women in the menopause, to also help women who have conditions like endometriosis. That gives me hope because why should we suffer in silence? Why should we, it's not just the woman's side of it is we suffer in silence and and nothing changes, which is quite depressing. And on the other side, it's like we lose really, really amazing women from top seats, top jobs, from the workplaces because they just can't deal with it anymore. And it's a build up.
I think too, or certainly when I was going through the perimenopause and menopause, which is quite a long time ago now, the feeling was in general within the society, you just get on with it. Just get on with it and don't complain. Just crack on. And I love to see how much information there is out there and how supportive women are out there. We were supposed to all have a silo mentality and just go, well, it's part of being a woman, shut up.
And it's the isolation that
Yes.
creates, because I feel like in the past, women for thousands and thousands of years have been more in this, like, of course, we hang out, we have coffees, we have a glass of wine, we talk. Women always talk real conversations. I think that's true. But there's a lot that were just almost like taboos that were just put, like sweep it under the rug. We don't talk about that. And sexual assault is another one, and there's just so many of these like taboo topics that have just never been, like they've just been sort of they're there. There's an elephant in the room, but it's very uncomfortable. So we don't know how people feel about it. So therefore, we stay quiet. But I do feel that that's changing, and I feel like what's happening is that women are starting to see each other and go. It's like the Me Too movement. It's like, whether it's endometriosis or perimenopause or menopause or assault. It's like, oh yeah, me too. I've had that experience. And when I do the coaching work with women, we are so similar. And I share that back to so many different people. And I say, you will not believe how many conversations I've had this week about that topic. Because for them, it's like, oh, I'm not on my own. Like, so, I mean, they know that people are going through menopause. It's not that. But sometimes it's a smaller thing. It might be grief. Like we talked earlier about the passing of, husbands. I know 3 people, that are clients who have just lost their husbands young. And So obviously, and I'm like, yeah, there's so many people going through so many things that are the same. Miscarriage is another one. Where we start to share our stories, and a lot of women have experienced miscarriage, and you go, "Oh, I didn't know that about you." And it's really important that we do that. And I think we are the storytellers, we are the communicators, we are the creatives in many ways. Like our brains are much more emotionally charged, and that creativity is needed in the world because if we can't like get into the truth of what we're experiencing, how can we possibly change it?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So just coming back to you and what you offered, you offer one-to-one coaching. What are your other offerings?
I do, like I've always worked with groups of women as well. And this idea of, putting women together in a safe space and to do important work. So I have like the group work that I do as well, and really sort of just plugging women back into each other and saying to them, "Hey, what do you want to work on? Like, what's important for you right now? Like, what's lacking? What do you want more of? Um, what do you want to feel more of? What do you want to feel less of?" And just getting this real like vision of them, almost like each one of as their own little like country.
Yeah.
And then you find that there's this sort of like syncing that happens, and then we do the work and I bring in the different skills that they're going to need for each area. And it feels like a map, like we're basically doing a map plan. And my whole thing at the moment, I talked a lot about the hard stuff, like the breaking points and the like those moments in life where we change forever. But I also feel there's a huge need for us to dream and for us to use our imagination. Because if we can't dream it and see it, it's very hard to create. And so my whole thing is really about finding this sort of daily enchantment, spaces where we can find the magic. It could be the smallest thing, or it could be something really big. But if we're not chasing that every day, I used to do a thing during COVID called joy hunting, where I would hunt joy when we were in lockdown and, really purposefully cultivate that. Now it's more about enchantment and this magic and this like feeling of release and freedom, because everything feels heavy and dark. And so it's really, really important that we don't ignore the issues. And I do enough work in that field, that we talk about the issues, but we're also like, okay, we need to start turning this dial because certain things look like they're crumbling. So what's the alternative? Where are we taking things? How do we bring, a feminine solution here? And when women get together and start to do that work, they get really excited. It's like it's like being around the campfire and, all of a sudden there's an energy there. And they want to do good things. Like women are very purposeful, and the women I work with have got high purposes, but they've forgotten to put themselves into the purpose.
Yeah.
So it's like linking who we are as individuals. Our purposes in life is to be loved, respected, honored, and then taking that out further because it has to start on the inside.
I think sometimes also women become very depleted that we've got a world where so many people are working, supporting family household budgets, looking after children, possibly looking after parents or supporting it in some way, juggling life, and putting themselves uh, front of house in any way. It gets lost in that mix. I heard of somebody at Christmas saying that she'd literally reached breaking point by the time Christmas Day arrived. I mean, she'd been working up to that point. She'd been choosing the presents because her husband said, "Oh, you get them. You know so much. You know what to get people." And she'd wrapped them and she'd bought the food. And somebody just asked something more of her to do, and she just went, "That's it. I'm not cooking the meal. I'm not doing another thing. I, 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 I've had enough. I'm done. I'm done." And of course, everybody then had to try to pull together.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a fan of that because I feel like sometimes we're just going to throw it back and be like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. Like I always have this phrase, it's like, this will no longer do. And
Yeah,
what we're saying is this will no longer do for me, and it's amazing what can get created from that time. It's not, it can feel like it's obviously not nice to get to that point when you're like, I'm done. But sometimes that is what it takes for it to be rebuilt differently. And I think fear, like, I don't think we should fear that. I think it's more like just a basic truth. And when we speak that truth so clearly, it's amazing how it comes out, but people know we mean it. And more of that.
More of that. Yeah, more of that. But it's interesting, isn't it, that she had to get to that point, and I think that is very indicative of how many women do operate. They'll keep going and they'll keep going and they'll keep adjusting, and then you actually need, whether it's your ring being stolen, and suddenly you just think, no, hang on, no, and it I just feel so often women in general put themselves at the bottom of the pile in terms of self-care and nurture.
Absolutely. And I'm committed, on my own personal journey for that one as well, like, and for other women. That's really, really important that we just readdress that balance, because the balance isn't there. And we know we need to do it. Like, I think saying to women, you need to listen to yourself, and like just telling them that doesn't really work. Like, it has to be their own experience of a journey. And often when we come together and we all start to share, that's when you go, oh, we have a problem here. Like, this is systemic. And this goes back to, childhood. This goes back to, and you can start to unravel that in a very conscious and healthy way, so that you're not exploding over over just the night before Christmas. I mean, nobody really wants to do it like that, but sometimes that is the only way. I think with women, we often don't realize how close to a breaking point we are until we're there, because we've put up with so many. It's like like people talk about microaggressions. I think it's the same with, emotional labor. There's such a big, massive, long build up, but the signs are there, the signals are there. And when we tune into our bodies are always going to tell us like the answer, because often we're living in the no to it all. We've been resisting saying no internally to things, but saying yes and saying yes, okay, 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 and and then eventually we're like, screw this. This is not, this is not right, and it's normally quite dramatic, But if we can sort of take a step back, you do your meditation and your yoga, these practices that we have in our daily life that help us to just come back in and drop down a little bit deeper and help us to find that truth about who we are. There's so many words for that, isn't there? Like, like if we go into the heart, it's the soul essence. And if we go down to the gut, it's the inner knowing. And we have all these access points inside our bodies that are often so ignored or not even known about. And I think, if women are in their heads and they're in the to-do list and they're very, very functional, well, that takes them away from, the deep wisdom that lives inside every single one of us, and the deep knowing. And I'll say to my clients, if you listen to your deep knowing 10% more this week, what would you say yes to and what would you say no to? And they always go, I've got three things at least, straight away. Like, it's not that we know this stuff. Like, we know that if we listen, we're going to get steered in a certain way. We're not often ready for what that might mean. But when we are ready, we start to do it, life changes. And I'm here for that. And especially the hands of women, like, because we do have to hold each other's hands. I don't think, like, doing deep work, like deep, in depth, self-reflection work, I don't think anyone should be doing that alone. I think that needs to be with a trusted expert advisor, someone who is like deeply there for you, not from a codependent place, because that's not empowerment, but from a truly I see people and I go, I can see them in their highest self, and just to keep giving them that mirror, and then supporting with the skills and the awareness and the action plans, whatever they need. Some people don't need a lot of action. They need more of the being. But we wrap it together. That's when life starts to unfold. I mean, you've worked with me, so you know that the work that it's very much coming from within the body and what the body is saying, and listening to the prompts and the information in the body that will say, I thought I wanted that, but actually I've realized that I don't.
And I think too, we grow in collaboration so much, and I think that's an enormous strength. And I think there are so many views on life that are definitely changing. Certainly, things like counselling has become much more important. And even if there isn't a problem within a relationship or a marriage, you can still work to make it better. Even if you don't think there's a problem in your life, there are still things you can do that can make your life better. And as we do those things, we make everybody else's life better as well because we give that off. What do you think the world most needs right now from us as women?
I think love.
Love, yes.
For it to come back into our hearts.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we tolerate, the behaviors of others. It's not that, because that's not love actually. When we love ourselves, um we love our boundaries as well and what's not okay with us. I think when we think about love, it's often like this soft and gentle thing, but actually, there is the area of tough love, but I would call it more like powerful boundaried. Like, I know who I am. This is what I need. You are not coming towards me with that because that's not for me. And very, very sort of upholding and, yeah, I mean, when I say it, I can feel the energy of it in my body. It's like, I now know that I can really hold space and really hold boundaries. And I love that about myself now. But I mean, I didn't know how to do that before. So I feel like if we can love and know that we can take care of ourselves and our needs, that is super, super powerful. And what I notice as well with women is that when women see it in other women, they want to know, how did you do that? Like, what's like, I really admire what you just did or said or how you showed up. And they're inspired by it. So, there is that point of leading in the world and actually leading and being role models and showing up. But all we're doing is listening to what we know from the inside and then we're sharing it. And some people will like it, some people won't. And that's whatever. But we're still doing it. So I think that is the thing for women. It's like, we need women in all spaces. We need them in government. We need them, in corporate boardrooms. We need them in the school. We need them everywhere to be taking the seats, but taking care of themselves, not losing themselves in purpose, plugging themselves into their purpose and then sharing that purpose out wider. Because what we don't need is more depleted women. We need women that know how to reset, reboot, maybe take a bit of time back and then come back out again. And that's been my rhythm since I had Catalina. Like, my rhythm's very much like go into the cocoon, do the work, say no to things, come back, And when I come back, I'm like, the people that know me go, when I say I'm really tired, I'm going to bed or whatever I'm doing, and no, I'm not available, and then they're like, okay, we can't wait to see what comes out the other side. It works. It works.
Oh, I know it works. I've seen you in action. Well and truly. And what's next for you, do you think? Are you evolving as Catalina evolves and grows and
I am.
progresses?
I am, and I'm also, as she's evolving, I'm having to do my own work still
Yeah.
because I see her challenges, and it always takes me to a place where I go, like now she's 7.5, and when she first went to school, I had to do loads of work. I was like, I wasn't expecting this, to be to sort of just take care of myself, to because I am, I also have a very active brain. And I don't want people to think, oh, she sounds like she's got it all sorted because I really haven't. And I have to do this work every single day. I have to take care of myself every day. And my brain is nonstop. So I have to really, really care for myself, especially as I'm getting older. And I see her go through things and it triggers me. And I go, oh, God, there's a little wounded some child in there who needs a bit of love. And then I have to go take care of her. And luckily, I've done enough work to know how to take care of the lost parts of myself, the wounded parts of myself, the parts that got suppressed or didn't have skills to be able to communicate how she felt. All of that in our work, I can handle it and I know what to do. So that's, and I think that will continue as she goes through her life. I'll be doing whatever she's going through. I'll be taking care of my own, a lost part of myself that perhaps didn't get what she needed at that moment. So it's going to be an interesting ride. I think what's next for me is I just keep moving. I think keep
Yeah.
moving. I've been doing this work for 12 years. I'm all about making a difference, and if I can connect to that, making a difference, peace, whatever that might look like as I'm getting older, then it's all good.
Well, everything about you is good, to be honest, in my book, and you do make a difference. And I know many people actually that you have made a difference to in the past. Is there anything you would like to express now that we haven't particularly covered?
I just think it's this. I just want to sort of send out waves of hope and love for women. You know, I want to remind women of their power and to keep dreaming and visioning what they really want, and to really listen on the inside as much as they can. I know life is busy, but it's really, really important. And to, just express what they need, express their needs and speak out. That's really it for me. But never to lose hope, because we are truly remarkable, and we are truly powerful, and we can handle so much. That's why we're talking about breaking points.
Yeah, it's interesting. A, a few months ago, my son and grandson, my grandson's 15, they sent the whole family pictures of their own vision boards for this year. And it occurred to me, it was something that I used to encourage around me, and it's something I haven't done in a very long time. And that uh, the emphasis you put on dreaming, you've triggered me.
Yeah. It's really important. I do them every year, and I have been doing since 2006. Um,
Yeah.
but I stopped doing them when I had Catalina, because I was like, I don't have space for dreams. I have to focus on being a mom. And I stopped. But then there was a certain point, maybe when she, I don't know how old she was, but it was definitely sort of like, it could be 4 years, maybe age 4, started to do them again. And I noticed there was a shift in the direction of my life. And it's a mysterious thing, is visioning. It really is. And that's why I love it, because you can put things down and then, but sometimes it's the feeling of something that you're really going for. I'm dreaming of Italy at the moment. I'm obsessed with Italy, but it's the feeling of Italy that I really want. And can I create that in everyday life? That's the challenge. It's in the smell of the soap. It's in um, the Italian coffee, like these little touch points that we can then sort of start to do. We start to own it, and then before we know it, we are in Italy. But it's like, I think this is more like just connecting to something that we really want to feel every single day, and then having the vision there that we can look at and just trusting the journey.
Trusting the journey, indeed. Wow. Okay. Oh, Karen, as I listen to you, I'm aware that your story is both deeply personal, but it's also part of something so much bigger. It feels like we're living in a time where the way we choose to respond to life, whether it comes from fear or love, it really matters. It really matters. And you help people to choose love over fear. And that's massive. Um, I'm curious, through everything you've lived and learnt, how do you see that? Do you see you're being called in some way to lead differently?
Yeah, 100%. I think I've always been called to live differently.
Yes, I think so.
I don't think it's anything, and it just feels weird to me to get in. Like, I'm like, have I ever hate? I did this weird thing the other day, and I was like, what have I been? What have I? What's the cause of me? What's the cause of my life? Like, and I was going through. I was always trying to take a bit of a score sheet if I've done anything bad, and I was really struggling, because I was like, I've stood up for myself. That might hurt somebody, but that's exactly as it needs to be. And I just was like, oh, stop it. It's all good. Like, I've always been part of something generally. I have made mistakes. I've done stupid things. Um, I've disrespected myself, all of that stuff that's part of life. I've done all of that, but never with like malintention, and I've always paid the consequences of my actions, to be honest. And I just feel like when I look at it, I go, no, I've always been committed to something important, something beautiful, something good, something kind, something loving. That's just me. And I can own that. And it gives me a sense of safety, and it gives me a sense of trusting myself, because I go, I'm never gonna be swayed. Like, I have integrity. and honor, and I'll never be swayed off that. And there's nothing that anyone could give to me and say, if I give you that, we do that. It's always a no. It's just no. That's out of alignment. So I'm happy that I can say that. And I think, we all commit to that journey of like caring for each other, which is very much a matriarchal behavior, taking care of our children, then we're going to evolve in the right way. I think for me, it's very, very simple. Like, it's yes or no, but it's like, who are we caring for here? If we can care for people, then we're in a good spot. But if we're shutting people down and we are trying to take power over others, for me, that is the hateful way. And I don't believe in that. So it's not something I can buy into.
There's something so powerful in what you've shared, and in the way your journey holds both loss and love side by side, not as opposites, but as part of the same unfolding. And perhaps that's what stays with me the most, that when a woman comes home to herself, to her truth, her voice, her way of being, it doesn't just change her life, it ripples out into the way she loves, the way she leads, the way she meets the world. And quietly, that begins to change things. Oh, thank you for your honesty, your wisdom, and for the work you do in supporting women to find their way back to themselves. And to those of you listening, thank you for being here, for listening, and for walking your own path in your own way and in your own time. And as Karen talked about trust so beautifully, may you trust the path you're on and the quiet wisdom that's guiding you home.